All right, Barton, level 8, lesson number 7. We are working on more diphthongs. Such a hard word to say. So, as a reminder, our first diphthong is oi. Two letters that come together to make one sound. We don't have very many in our language, but it is one because we have 26 letters and 44 sounds, phonemes in our language. So, the obviously the 26 letters have to pair up together to make other sounds. So our new one that we're going to do is going to be aw. Now, this one is a little bit challenging because your mouth really has to drop pretty far. Aw. Down like that. We see it in a lot of words like the word auction, audio. AU is going to be used at the beginning and the middle of words. Sounds that you got to be careful though. It's very similar to ah as an olive. Aw. I almost say it with like kind of a Boston accent. Aw. Really got to drop your chin. Audience, haunted, cautious. So, those are some of the words that we looked at. Trauma. And then we talked about how this could not be how the word straw is spelled because American words do not end with the letter U. So we need a different way to spell the aw sound at the end, which is the AW. Straw. And again, you couldn't spell draw with an AU. You would have to change it out with an come back, AW. Draw. There's a couple words where the A and the W are a vowel team at the beginning, but that's actually pretty uncommon. Most of the time where you see an A and a W at the beginning of the word, they're separate. So it's schwa, wake, go. Well, that's not a W, but that's the deal. Awoken. So there's a couple where that is a vowel team. We've got awful, we've got awkward, and awesome are three where AW is actually a vowel team at the beginning, but most of the time an A and a W together at the beginning of the word, they'll just be separate. We spell with an AU in the middle of the word most of the time. There's only two exceptions with that, and that's if it's followed by one N or one L. And we talk about these being nice letters pretty often. So N for nice, L for letter. And so that's why drawn is followed by one N. So it's going to be an AW in the middle. Lawn, same thing. It's followed by one N, so it's an AW in the middle. Haunt is followed by two letters. So we're going to go back to the original spelling, which is AU. And crawl is the other one. So an L on the end, one L. And so it's going to be an AW then. Fawn, same thing. AW. Fraud, not an N, not an L. So we're going to go back to the AU for that one. Fraud. Scrawl, one N, one L. Bringing that down. Taunt, more than one AU. Okay, so that's kind of the first part of this. And we just sort of review that sometimes, again, these are going to sound like the short ah as an olive. Got to be really careful with the pronunciation, but most of the time, I would just look it up if you're really unsure whether it's an AU or an O in the middle. So that's what I would do. Now, it's only in the middle that's going to get confusing because like the word claw, you hear the ah at the end. Your student wouldn't be able to spell with a short O sound at the end. They just can't. So if they pull down the O here, it would actually say clo, not claw. It wouldn't make the sound that you would want. So really the only time you're going to see that it's a challenge for spelling is when it's in the middle, like the word staunch. Okay. So that's part one. Part two, we're working on a couple new prefixes. So we learned the prefix auto, meaning self. Okay, so we have auto meaning self. We might see it in a word like autopilot, autograph, something that you write yourself. We're going to switch right in and talk about self. Self is another prefix that also means self. So it always has a hyphen on it. So self hyphen dash is the way that we're going to spell that. So you'll see it in a word like self-control, self-esteem, and that's it. Okay, so where are we going to house this information? Okay, so for the prefixes, the part two, I'm going to put it right in the Barton companion notebook. I'm going to write it right in here. Auto, self, like automatic, or self, meaning self, like self-esteem. And for the other part, I'm going to put it in vowel teams or pairs or diphthongs. And so AU says aw. This is called a circumflex, I think. This little marking here with the O with the psh, psh, over the top of it, and just indicates that you say it a little bit different than a short O. So, audience. And then AW, same thing, saw. So at the end of the word, and then at the end with the N and the L, crawl and lawn. So I would also mark these AU at the beginning, in the middle, and AW is going to be at the end. So that's where, ooh, hello. That's where I would house these. Let's take a look at the extra practice work. Change your screen, Lynn. Okay, let's go back to box off each prefix and suffix and write the base word on the blank line. So, you know, technically some of these are actually Latin roots, like immune, IM is actually a prefix. So if your student is really advanced or really wants to get technical with it, we can talk about IM being a prefix, probe being a prefix, really app is a prefix. These are called chameleon prefixes, but these are then, you know, you're getting into a little bit of Latin. But for all intents and purposes, this is what it should look like, except I do see an edit that I need to make on a hydraulics. But those are your prefixes, those are your suffixes. Authentically has two suffixes on it, the AL and the LY. So that's that one. They can go ahead and make sentences. And then your last one is going to be change the order to make a real word. So we have lawfully, nautical, outlawing, cautiously, withdrawing, automated, and laundering. Let's take a look at the, nope, here we are, at the fluency drills. You know, reading these is often going to be easier than spelling them. Reading them, they really only have one sound, so it's the aw sound. Although some of these words are pretty advanced, so another great opportunity to talk a lot about vocabulary. Make sure your student knows what all of these words like staunch and scrawl, hydraulic I explained today. So so two pages for this. We can divide a couple of these words. Oh, I showed my student a rickshaw today. Rickshaw, macaw. And this would go together, macaw. And just as a note, we also worked on this word today. My student spelled this word like this during the day, and that can't be right, because this can't say right here. If we divided this U and the word macaw would say mew-caw. It would be open now, like the word music. So if they hear it's going back all the way to like a level 4 rule, which is when you hear it's called the banana rule. And it tells us that it's got to be an A. And so we see it, I mean, we see it in a ton of words, usually at the end, like the word Delta or Minnesota. But there's plenty of words where you're going to hear a schwa at the end of a syllable. It has to be spelled with an A. So let's, you know, memorizing isn't reading. Make sure your student is taking control of these words by dividing and decoding to get to deciphering. Okay, that's it for level 8, lesson 7. Have a great day.